actually involved in the world in a very intimate kind of way and are making decisions that will impact everybody else. It's a hell of a lot more active and I think a hell of a lot more interesting than what's just calling up somebody you met 20 years ago and decided that you want to reinvigorate a relationship that you probably should have forgotten 20 years ago anyway.
We live in a world that's grayer, less black and white. There's a value in that you don't get if you're being presented with a pure villain or a pure hero.
Everybody has a shadow self. Everybody lies in bed thinking, oh, what if? What if I could get my revenge? What if I could get even? We've all thought that. The difference is we don't act upon that. Dexter is a character that does act upon that.
His shadow side is pretty significant.
No, forensics.
I don't think Dexter initially is targeting criminals because of some sort of sense of himself as a crusader. But Dexter could be seen that way, cleaning up the messes that the justice system leaves behind.
Dexter, in many ways, is Batman. Can't tell the truth about who he is. It's forged in the death of a parent and is channeling his rage and compulsion for good.
The mask he wears is more during his day-to-day life. He's unmasked when he's doing his thing.
All of the great comic book superheroes are a throwback to the classics. They are all very flawed characters. They all have their kryptonite. They all have been born of horrible tragedy.
Watching his mother get chainsawed into pieces in front of him when he was basically 4 or 5 years old. From that point on in his life, how do you make your life make sense?
Dexter recognizes this darkness in him, and instead of taking his own life, he takes the lives of people who haven't taken the responsibility for their impulses in the way he imagines he has. So he's arguably saving more lives than he's ending, and he's also extinguishing the darkest part of himself.
There's a bluntness about the character, you know, being an overt serial killer. You know, there's no kind of hiding behind that fact. Dexter's a sociopathic killer. He has this unquestionable thirst to kill. And ultimately, Dexter's killing is compelling only because he can justify why he's killing that person.
I think audiences relish being given the opportunity to identify with someone who is, on paper at least, reprehensible. All bets would be off if he was killing indiscriminately. The fact that he targets terrible people opens the door for the audience to identify with him in some way.
Don't trust me, Sergeant. I could have killed you. I didn't.
You didn't because you can't. I've had time to think about this moment. I don't fit that code you were talking about, do I?
He needs to know that he's doing the right thing for the right person, not letting the people who deserve justice slip through the cracks.
He is finding those bad people and getting rid of them. You know, who doesn't want to get rid of the detritus? You know, who doesn't want to get rid of all this kind of seemingly madness that goes on every once in a while?
What do you leave behind? A world without you? Look at that steady as a surgeon.
Yeah, it's a very, very intriguing television series, but it is one of those shows you go like, eek.
I know early on in the show, if people who were watching it would approach me and say that they kind of felt guilty about the fact that they liked the show.
God knows I've written a lot of serial killers in my time, but I've never asked the audience to believe in the triumph of a serial killer.
There's nothing wrong with depicting violence. Violence is part of the human condition. I understand that their tongue is in their cheek in a way, and I understand it's sort of an inside-out show. But frankly, as well a show as it's made, I don't want to be part of any show that would suggest that there's a catharsis in violence, in serial killing.
People talk about the moral ambiguity these days of the anti-hero and all that, but that's the world that we're living in. And I think Dexter's argument is innately valid anyway, since there are a lot of bad people out there who have escaped justice, and he's just making sure that they don't.
I don't care how well you tell that tale. There's nothing to commend that as an idea. And ideas are important to me.
Do some people deserve to die? And I don't know that the show comes down one way or another, but it certainly tempts you into perhaps feeling that some people do, and then you have to wrestle with the fact that you felt that way. The coin never really lands. It's just sort of spinning in the air.
I'd like to know what makes that audiences create these guidelines by what they choose to watch. Artists need to be in a position to sort of push the boundaries and let the audience speak back to them.
Most writers have always wanted to delve into the soul and what makes us tick. Bad guys don't